Hello everyone, this is Duck07. This is another Rokiric Rhinos video. This is another Rokiric Rhinos video. Uh, uh, Played this list again after some time and got the 5-0 in the first try. So basically played the last time, got the 5-0 and now tried it for the first time after that and got the 5-0 again. Deck feels pretty good. So for those who didn't see previous videos, this is the deck playing typical Cascade Zoo or Rhino shell, but with both Crashing Footfalls and Territorial Cavos as our Cascade payoffs. So very nice thing in this deck is when you have General Ferrus Rokiric, which is very important figure in this deck. When you have him on the field, and then it doesn't matter if you cascade into Territorial Cavu or Crashing Footfalls, because you get a very similar amount of power on the field. It gets even better to cascade in Cavu at that point because you like go Shardless into Cavu, which makes two 4/4 golem tokens with general, but uh, you get cow which is 5/5, and for example when you go shardless into crashing footfalls you get just one golem and two rhinos, which is one power less than when you cascade into cow. So it gets very similar. So that is the point of this deck. This deck is usually trying to go like turn 2 either territorial cow or ice opponent's land on upkeep. And then turn 3 play General Ferris Rokiric if you have it. This creature is very hard to remove for a lot of decks like Murktide, like Rhinos mirror match. Not exactly mirror, but when you're playing against opponents' Rhinos, they really don't have a way to remove Rokiric. Same thing with Murktide decks and a lot of other decks really. So the most usual way of killing General Ferris Rokiric is Vrennen 6. Vrennen 6 is its weak link, and but you also have some force of negations on the sideboard, and so something you can control sometimes, or you'll sometimes just wait with playing General Kirik until you have 5-6 mana, so you can get some immediate value from it the turn you play it, and stuff like that. So there are ways to get around it. Also, putting a lot of creatures on the field can help you kill Vren, then play General Affairs or Kirik after that. Also, Fury is good at that too. So these are the things, strategies this deck is trying to use. So playing General Affairs Rokiric turn 3 into turn 4 Bloodbraid Elves bring enormous value. So when you do this, if you hit any of these cascade spells from the Bloodbraid Elf, you will get one token, two token, and either three tokens, golems or footfalls. So at the worst case, you get Bloodbraid Elf, Shardless Agent, for example, or Arden Plea, whatever, and Crashing Footfalls, which means two Golem tokens, plus two Rhino tokens, plus Shardless, plus Bloodbraid Elf. So a lot of power on the field. It can get really, really crazy in these turns. If you also just have a Shardless or Outburst or anyway, you also get a lot more, a lot power on the field. So once you're able to put your general on the field, you are creating enormous amount of power each turn. And if your opponent doesn't play Brennan 6 or Terminate, that are the most common ways of dealing with the General Ferris Rokiric. All other decks not playing these two cards have a very hard time dealing with it, as yeah, just people don't. It's not common to have cards that are solutions for the General Affairs Rokiric in most popular decks. Um, Also, in a lot of situations, you can just overpower the hammer time opponents. They can have equipped hammer, but if they don't have evasion, you mostly have enough power to trade with their equipped creatures, even sometimes double equipped creatures, stuff like that. And we are playing Leyline Bindings, Fire Ices, So a lot of solutions which we can raise any deck. Uh, so all these cards are usually played in a Rhinos deck, and Rhinos is a very good, very well positioned deck at the moment. But this deck is way more grindier, producing a lot more late game material, a lot more power, putting a lot more power on the field, overwhelms opponents very quickly. So. So yeah, definitely a lot of decks have a hard time playing against this, and I think this is very well positioned at the moment and a very high power on a very high power level, and just a very good deck. Okay, so in yesterday challenge, one player did very well with a very similar list. Basically, they opted to not play Crashing Footfalls and removed four of cascade cards to put a Scion of Draco and that gone into the deck, and that was the list which ended up third in the yesterday's challenge. So pretty fun version with playing just Cascade 2, but with the Territorial Kavu as only Cascade payoff. I think that says a lot about how good Territorial Kavu is as the only payoff in the deck. So it's not just verse to cascade into Kavu. It very much affects uh, what players are playing at the moment because it gets around Cascade Hate like Flustertorn, Spell Pierces, Chalice of the Void, and a lot of these games you can trick your opponents by boarding out either cows or crashing footfalls, and you'll catch them off guard when they're like holding one blue mana for Flusterstorm, and you are cascading into territorial cows, and sometimes they're prepared for footfalls, but you boarded them totally out of the deck, or vice versa. Like sometimes you just take out your cows, but in most situations, I tend to just trim some number of copies of the weaker card, weaker payoff in the matchup. And that's it. Okay, so also when you're bringing in Force of Negation, you must remove Blood Red Elves from your main. So kind of have a few critical situations and a few critical things you need to learn when trying to play this. So when to board out cow, when to board out rhinos, and when to board just trim some number of either of them. And basically, once you get that, you are very good. At playing this, and we will now go through the last league, which ended up with a 5-0, and see all the games, and most of them were pretty easy for me, and opponents were just all hugely overwhelmed by what I was doing. So let's check that out. Okay, so first game was the hardest, playing against Blue Red Scum deck. Let's see how it went. Okay, opponent played second. I had to mulligan to 4 cards. That was partially the reason why the game was hard for me. Sorry, it was okay. It was the Jagmat. I forgot. I guess it was Jagmat. Okay, so yeah, opponent started with Hierarch into Grist, and I was on mulligan to 4 with the General Ferris Rokiric, which dies to Grist, so I wasn't able to get any value of it. And my opponent just had a crazy hand with a turn 4 combo kill. So basically, just didn't do much. I just didn't play anything really. My opponent had the Yagmoth here, with had a perfect hand. So Yagmoth into immediate Chord of Calling in response to my Violent Outburst to get the combo Blood Artist immediately on the field, and that is it. So I'll just concede a match. They have the infinite combo, and let's go to the game 2. Okay, so game 2 of the first match in the league. Again, had to mulligan. Kept a decent hand and no cascade spell though, but yeah, Fire Ice means I get to draw, slow my opponent for a turn. and hope to get that cascade spell. And once I get that, I'm pretty good. Okay, so normally my opponent didn't have a turn one play, which is kind of unusual, but they made a mistake here by fetching, so I was able to play the ice on the overground tomb, which slowed them down for a turn. So they just played the Blowing Marsh past the turn, and I got my Shardless Agent. That was a good, very good play for me right now to just put 10 power on the field. Okay, we will see the sideboard. You can see that in this sideboard I boarded out my territorial cowls because this Jagwat opponent really don't play a lot of Cascade Hate. I think just Footfalls is a much better piece. So I just in this matchup I just removed my cowls and removed one Arden Plea from the main to get some cards from the sideboard in. Nothing crazy from the sideboard, but what else? This was okay. This was the very quick game. Just turn three Rhinos with a fire ice, followed by turn four Rhinos. Opponent concedes, and that was it. Okay, let's see the final match against Jagwat. I take out my Kavus, also one General Ferris Rokiric, one Arden Plea. I think it was worth it to leave in some force of negation, which is not a thing I usually do in most matchups, but I think it was okay here. And I just went for the Violent Outburst, got my Rhinos, and I was able to start attacking. Had a very good previous turn with a Fire Ice plus Fury on Grist. And when I played the Leyline Binding on my turn to get rid of Geist, my opponent concedes. So that was a Jagmot match. Okay, all other matches ended up 2-0, pretty dominant. And the only loss really was that mulligan to 4. So, okay, let's see. This game kept this pretty bad 7. And my opponent immediately discarded both of my non-land cards. But the matchup against Blue Red Scum is just very favorable. I got a lot of lands here to get the basics I need, which is very important for me in case they go moon. And once you get to three lands, you just play your Shardless Agents, Violent Outburst, stuff like that, and they really can't compete with that. So I just went for basic here, tapped the Grief so it can't attack, and play the land, pass the turn. So having a lot of options here like Outburst if they attack, Binding to remove Grief, and Fire Ice, a lot of stuff here. So I just decided I will go for Leyland Binding here to stop them from attacking, and now I can play easily my game, just casting my Violent Outbursts. First one get me a Kavu, and I had two more in the hand, so I was able to play another Outburst plus go Fire Ice on their upkeep. My opponent had a fatal push here, so I just went Fire Ice on their upkeep, so I prevent them from playing Season Pyromancer or Blood Moon. And they had a Fury Scam here to kill my Kavu. So they dealt with both of my creatures, but had I had more cascade spells. So in this point of the game, just cascading a bunch of time into any target is very good. And this is a fifth cascade spell. So if I was just playing the Rhinos, I wouldn't have any more cascade spells at this point. I had the Plia, so I was able to attack with one of my creatures each turn. I also went for territorial cow attack here to get the ability going, and I found my fury, but I was prioritizing fetching the basics, so I didn't have a second red mana here. But my opponent saved me with Blood Moon. I also got a red card to pitch the fury if necessary, but it was better this way definitely. So I just played my fury, attack with everything, and finished this game. Okay, so game two against Black Red Scam. Um, I decided to mulligan that hand, kept slightly better hand, no cascade spells, but I have Furies to deal with early pressure plus turn to play, so I'm good. My opponent goes for Doughty, and I just decide to immediately find my basic and remove the Doughty. I think this was the most secure play for me, and my opponent played Blood Moon next turn, which definitely means that the basic plan paid off for me. And this point, I had another Fury in hand, which was very good, and I had the opportunity to attack with my Cavu, discard the lands, trying to find something better. Did find the General Ferrous. General Ferrous very good here. Just a few multicolor spells can really just quickly win the game here. They finally went for the Spyro, and then scammed the Grief, discarded both of my cards, and second Fury and Footfalls, but still I was in okay position here. I attacked with my Kavu and killed one Elemental, but my opponent got a Fury, which meant I have to find something soon, some multicolor spell to trigger my General Ferrous, and the Violent Outburst came at ideal time, so I just pass the turn holding the Outburst. Opponent goes for the attack, I play Violent Outburst, I get the Golem token. I cascade into Territorial Cowl, so I get another Golem token, and my opponent is on 0 cards, so there's no need for blocking here, just let the 4 damage through and kill them on the swing back. And that was it, so just attack there for the lethal. Opponent can block just one, so that is it. Okay, so that was game 2 against red black scam opponent, and we are off to the match 3. In the match 3, playing second again, uh, keeping a 2-lander with a lot of cascade spells. Didn't have a solution for the Ragavan, but I found third land, which was pretty good for me, so I just went for the Misty here to find Zago Triumph, plan to go for sorry, Alexander's Lodge. Sorry, plan to go for Territorial Cow, but I draw into Leyland Binding, so I decide to go Leyland Binding instead to get rid of Ragavan. I was afraid of them having the removal spell for Cow, so I just opted to go for that. And Goif was just 1-2 at this point, so leaving 1 damage in was fine. They go for Totsis, and I play Violent Outburst in response. Get the Crushing Footfalls on the field, and they got Goif at 5-6, but it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because I have so much gas in my hand. They obviously didn't have a Renin 6, so I decided to just resolve my General Ferrous, let the 5 damage through, and once I tap with General Ferrous, it's game over. So I played my Charles into Crushing Footfalls, got 3/4/4 tokens, got Charles, and got a lot of blockers. And next turn I go for another Cascade spell, which gets me huge number, of power on the field again, and that was it. My opponent concedes. Okay, that was game one against Jund. Game two, again, I keep a decent hand. I have a turn one suspend footfalls, turn two Kavu, turn three agent, pretty good. My opponent starts again with Ragavan. Okay, let's see what I sideboarded in this match. I got two territorial Kavus out. So left two of them in and got one general out because they play Brennan 6 and Bloodbraid Elf plus one Plea. So when they're on the play, I always board differently than when I'm on the draw. So I would probably not include the fairies on the play, but decided to put them in on the draw so it can slow down my opponent sometimes by bouncing constructs or large goif like this. Okay, so yeah, I had a lot of spells in the hand, and my opponent didn't have any more pressure on the field, so I was able to stabilize pretty comfortably and end the game. So that was it. That was the game two against a giant opponent who was really overwhelmed by number of cascade spells I played. So off to the match four. Match 4 kept two cows, turn 1 suspend footfalls, Layla and binding, outburst, very good hand. Hand that really does a lot. I have multiple options here. Kavu into Charles or Kavu into Kavu hold binding, so pretty good. Of course, I went for turn to Kavu, and the turn to Kavu in this matchup was pretty much critical. So for winning this game, sure, Fire Ice can be good, but on this turn, but it's just not putting any pressure on the field. And this Kavu just did a lot of work here, so I was able to just attack, put my opponent on 9 life, loot one card, try to find another counter or sorry, removal spell to prevent them from going creativity. So I just blocked with my Kavu. They definitely wanted to create this treasure token. And they made a dwarf token, but they played creativity on the treasure token. I had my Leyland binding, which I was holding. So I prevented them from doing that. And untapped, attacked with Kavu, got two abilities. I was looking for a removal spell, so I just discarded the Bloodbraid Elf. I didn't get it, discarded second Charles. I got my Fire Ice to finish my opponent immediately and pull through lethal damage. So that was game one against Creativity. In game two, you will see that I boarded in Fire Force of Negation. Sorry, they play Vrenna 6, so General Ferris is not great here. They play a lot of Flusterstorm and Spell Pierce, so that's the reason why I didn't board out all my cowls. I left two of them in, as it can sometimes really trick the opponent. But still, Rhinos is slightly preferable here as a cascade target. So my opponent goes for run and 6 on land, and I just decide to go endurance here. And my draws were really terrible. Didn't have such a bad draws in a long time, but my opponent wasn't that much better either. So I guess this game was a real cripple fight. So I really endurance on their run was really good, and they were struggling to find a fourth land for a long time, which probably enabled me uh, to to get out of this situation and to get enough draws to find the cards I need. Okay, so I didn't have anything really. My draws were only lands, so I decided to just go for the only spell I could play at the moment, go for Violent Outburst, find the Crushing Footfalls. My opponent has the spell Pierce. It would be neat if I just got Territorial Cabo. Territorial Cabo would be definitely preferable here, since it loots away the lands from my hand and also attacks well. Okay, my opponent just plus the Wren already to 7 loyalty, but nothing was really happening. My draws were terrible, and my opponent wasn't able to find a fourth land for a long time after playing that initial endurance. Okay, so end of turn, I find a threat, find the endurance, so I just play it and hope to start attacking with it. At first, I decided to attack Vren because kind of there was a really dangerous option of them finding some relevant spell and then ultimating the Brennan 6. So, like, I really needed to attack it. I can't let it ultimate and survive. So, I attacked it for 2 times to get it low enough so they're far away from the ultimate. And I got my force of negation, so I was able to continue attacking here, but definitely needed another spell. My opponent at this point on 7 cards. And I have just lands, finally find some useful cards like Binding Force of Negation to try to get back into the game. My opponent goes for the Leyline Binding. I decide to let them resolve so I can Leyline Binding their binding and just use my endurance ability again. It wasn't necessary, but ability of endurance wasn't necessary, but I decided to bring it back again to just continue the attacking. So attacked again with endurance, but my opponent had another binding, so it didn't really work out. So I was just left with Fire Ice in hand. I kept Fire Ice in case they go for Dwarven Mine and Creativity. That didn't happen. It looked mostly like they're trying to hardcast the Archon, so probably they had some number of Archons in their hand. And after that, I got the Force of Negation and finally find my Orvar. And this turn looked like this is the turn they're going to go for it, which was pretty good for me since I had the Force plus Orvar. And they actually had the Archon in hand, so they went for the hardcast, and which was ideal for my Orvar. They didn't play around it. So I just copied the Archon, I got my Archon, put them on 5 life. They have a Vren they can sack on my attack, but uh, but it is very good trade for me. I kill both of their Vren and 6 and the Archon, but my opponent even decided to end this before attack, so that was it. Okay, that was game 2, right? Yeah. And now it was time for the last game. Last game was match 5. Match 5 was Tron opponent, playing mono green Tron. And I was playing first, so that's a pretty good advantage. Fire Ice is a really good card against Tron. You will see this example just how much. It's so good that I decided to play it instead of Territorial Cow to just prevent my opponent from playing Territorial Cow, sacking the expedition map on turn 2, finding their third land I need. So I got the Leyland Binding to remove the expedition map, which was pretty good play, but my opponent just had a natural Tron from hand, which was pretty good for the opponent. They also got the Boseiju and Giganta to hand, but I guess they kept a hand with a lot of lands and no payoffs, so they just went for Giganta here. I had multiple options. Now I resolved my Crashing Footfalls. I had option to just go Pitch Fury and fire Giganta get the fire damage through, but I decided to tap their Urza tower in the upkeep to prevent them from playing big mana spells, but they had another tower plus Oblivion Stone, so it didn't work out for me that great, but I had just a lot of gas in my hands, so it wasn't really uh, that bad situation for me. So I just went for Outburst on the end of turn, got my cow on the field, fetched, make my cow 5/5 again. They went for Boseiju just on my land, but I had enough of lands to make cow 5/5. Just went for the Bloodbraid Elf at this situation to finish off the Karn Liberated and continue attacking my opponent. This way, I've got, even if they kill one of the cows, I still have a 10 damage as lethal for the next turn, so they really got to have another very good solution like that. Sorry, what is it called? Oblivion Stone, and they actually find another one. Actually found another one which was pretty good, so I just went for attack. They let me resolve my territorial cow ability, which was probably a mistake, but I had a good hand anyway, so it didn't really matter much. They go for the Oblivion Stone again, and I decided not to play the Shardless. Maybe Shardless was better play here, but I just wanted to play my spell end of their turn to guarantee making that 5 or 8 damage, whatever. So I just find my territorial combo again and got another outburst, use the ability, find another land. The land was like decent at the time, didn't really need those furies very much. They just went for a blast zone, so I had the option to go for the outburst and see if I get the combo. I don't necessarily need to cascade into it, but I've see what cascade is, see it as footfalls, and I do it. And I really don't want to play second cow into this blast zone. My opponent is forced to kill Kabul like this here, but I find Leyline Binding to finish my opponent off. I had a lot of cards, only 28 cards in my library, and so just Leyline Binding. So it was a kind of a probable top deck, and I did find it exactly on time, so it was very good for me. Okay, so that was game one against. Tron opponent had solutions for all their big stuff, and their car liberated just didn't do much, just destroyed one land, that's it. Okay, match two, now they're on the play, definitely a bit harder, but had decent hand. Force of Vigor plus Force of Negation plus Territorial Cow, pretty good. I didn't go for the turn one suspend Footfalls because I wanted to save it for to ditch pitch plate with the Force of Vigor. My opponent plays a lot of these cheap artifacts. I did decide to use my Force of Vigor to get rid of the Relic and the Sphere while they're tapped. And I just find my second blue source. Attack with Kavu, hold Force of Negation. Did I want to go for the Plia? I think Force is really necessary. I know they have Karn, little Karn in their hand. That's it, what I know. So I went for the Kavu ability again. Discard the Footfalls, get the Force of Vigor. My opponent plays the Warping Veil to jump block my Kavu, which was really good because that's one less spell that counters my Crashing Footfalls. Let's see what I boarded in this matchup. I boarded out my Bloodbraid Elves because I boarded in Force of Negations. I really don't want to have Force of Negation and Bloodbraid Elf in my deck unless it's somehow like it's like I don't if I only in matchups where I don't have good cards to board in, and in those situations I may just put like two Force of Negations in just to have some solution to my opponent's plan. And that's it. But I boarded out the Bloodbraid Elves because of the forces, and General Ferris in this matchup because I uh, and also two Furies. The two Furies are not that great against Tron, but can be sometimes used to kill their planeswalkers, something like that. But the General Ferris is, I think I want to be as fast as possible in this matchup, so I wasn't too much interested in the General Ferris. So that was the board for this game, and it worked out pretty great. Just one force of vigor, one force of negation, two cows ended up the game. That was it. Okay, so that is it. That is the entire league. Pretty quick games. Deck feels extremely powerful. I plan to play definitely some more of it, and as I said, one player used a very similar list to top of three challenge from yesterday. So guess the shell is really good, and but I think the version playing eight cascade payoffs is slightly better, and is because the list doesn't lose anything the non-footballs version can offer, but you still have that you gain this additional plan of messing up your opponent. And just using cow when its cow is better, using footballs when the footballs is better, and having that option feels really powerful at the moment because uh, a lot of decks packing a lot of different hate, and you can just easily adjust to the hate they play. You just have to gain some experience with it, and to just really be able to interrupt your opponent's game plan, and you'll often just see them playing the Chalice of the Void, playing holding one mana for Flusterstorm, Spell Pierce, and you know that your Crushing Footfalls are in your sideboard, and you just feel very good about it. And that's it. So I'm playing three General Affairs Rokiric in this list because I really wanted to fit in two Ardent Plea, mostly because of my blue card count, which is at absolute minimum to board in a Force of Negations for the sideboard. But in a lot of these situations, against creativity, you also board in Orvar, which is additional blue card. And against like Murtide, Scam, you will mostly just use the Fairy Time Reveler 2, which additionally gets the blue card count up, so it works very well in the most situations. Okay, so that is it. As I said, deck feels really, really powerful, and I would definitely want to plan to play it more immediately, and hopefully do another video soon. So that is it. Hope you liked the video. Hope you liked the gameplay. If you want to help the channel, click like, click subscribe, and that's it for today. Goodbye.